Hello, and welcome to Coordonix. One thing about GitHub is that your GitHub profile is literally like an online resume. So it's your first impression for employers, potential collaborators, and just the tech community as a whole. But let's be real, most profiles out there don't have a profile. It's just, here are some things. Today, I'm going to show you how to transform your GitHub profile into an eye-catching dynamic profile that stands out. Why does your GitHub profile matter? Well, think about it this way. If a recruiter or like a hiring manager for a company, or even just a fellow developer that wants to collaborate with you, looks you up, your GitHub profile is going to be the first thing that they see. So we want to make sure to build our profile so we have a personal brand. So whether you're looking to attract collaborators or you just want to build your personal brand, your profile not only sets the tone, it tells your story. So a polished and well-organized GitHub profile instantly makes you stand out. So let's break down exactly what you need to include to make your profile look great. All right, first things first, your profile README is what gives your profile personality. So step one is to create a new repo with the same name as your GitHub username. So we do new, type in our username, and it'll pop up a box telling you that it's a special repository. It's great. That's what we wanted. So now I'm going to leave it as public, and then I'm going to go ahead and create repository. I'm going to make sure to copy the quick setup, and now we're going to open WSL. So now that we have WSL open, we need to go to where we're keeping all of our repos. So there's our dot files. What we need to do is clone in our repo. So I'm going to do git clone, and I'm going to paste the command that we had earlier from GitHub. Now I'm going to change directories into that, and we're ready to go. So I'll clear this just to clear up some space. And now we need to create the README file. So I'm going to do vim readme.md. But before I hit enter, if you remember in the last video, we set up a template for a README file because we want all of our READMEs to be the same. We want consistency. However, this one's a little bit different because it's a special repo for a profile. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and then I'm going to do D and Shift G to delete everything from the beginning to the end. So let's go ahead and save that file now that it's blank. So one thing that I like to do is I like to use markdown within my README file. However, to do some special things, you need to actually throw in a little HTML. I'm going to hit I to go into insert mode, and I'm going to type in a little bit of HTML because I want to do something special at the beginning. So we're going to create a div, and I want this div to align in the center. So I'm going to add an image. We'll add our image tag, our source, and I'm going to do the images directory, and then I'm going to call this Coordonix header, and we'll make it a PNG. I'm going to do an alt message, just letting people know in case it doesn't load for some reason, that it is a Coordonix GitHub banner. And then I'm going to set the width to be 800 and the height to be 400. Whoops. So now that we have our image laid out, let's go ahead and do an H2 heading. We'll do an emoji for a silhouette, and then we'll say about Coordonix. I am going to do an H3 for our mission and another H3 for our vision. Then we're going to go back to H2s, and let's do a section for GitHub statistics, another one for featured repos, tech stack, and then we'll do another one for social media stuff. So let's add that and say connect with us. So now let's go back to the top. After the about Coordonix, we're just going to add a little text saying, hey, here's what we're about. And then we'll fill in the our mission and our vision sections. Perfect. So now we have an about section with just a sentence saying, hey, welcome to the profile. Then we have our mission and our vision statement out there for anybody to see. Now let's move down to the GitHub statistics. Great. So now I have this widget in here to pull the GitHub statistics. What this one specifically is for is what are the most used languages that I've used within my GitHub account. Next, we go down to the featured repos. This is also another widget that is available for use. I will link that in the description below as well. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about widgets. There are these two widgets that are online that I found just doing some research, and the one that I'm using under GitHub Stats, that is actually a little widget that creates an image to show the most used languages that are being used throughout my GitHub profile. Then, for the featured repos, I have another one called a README card. Again, the links will be in the description below for anything about these. But this one just creates a little featured box, just a square on the profile that has the name of the repo, the languages used, things like that, and the description. So for the tech stack, I'm going to have a lot of information within the actual README file, but it takes up very little space within the actual profile when it loads into GitHub. The big thing that this section is going to be used for is I've created categories. So for example, the first category is going to be languages, showing what languages do I know. I have another one for frameworks and libraries, design tools, software, and operating systems. So starting at the top, you'll see the tech stack heading, and then a sentence that just says, hey, here's a glimpse of the technologies that we use and love. And then you'll see here are 5 shields followed by a break, and then there's 3 shields and another break. The breaks are the actual categories. So you can look here, we have languages, then the frameworks and libraries, scroll down, design tools, software, and operating systems, or OSs is how I labeled it. So once we load this into the profile, you'll kind of get a better understanding of what that actually looks like. For the contact us, we're going to do the same exact thing. I've created 3 Shield.io badges that link to Facebook, YouTube, and the website itself. So now that we've finished up our Connect with Us, we have our Facebook, YouTube, and website hyperlinks ready to go. All of this stuff in the last 2 sections is actually set up through shields.io. So if you end up pulling up a web page, you can go to shields.io to learn how to get started and create these badges that we're using. So I'll show you what mine look like after we save and load the page. We use these badges and icons to make things visually appealing, and shields.io just helps with that. So that's pretty much everything. So I'm going to go ahead and save this file. And now that you know how to build a great profile, let's cover some of the key do's and don'ts to make sure that you're doing everything correctly. One thing you want to do is to keep your READMEs clean, simple, and well structured. That's why I like the headings. That's why I like the headings using markdown. So we have an H2 here, an H3 here. Each section is very simple to find. The next thing you want to do is once that you've created this and you've saved everything, you want to regularly update your profile with new projects that you're working on, new achievements, things like that. And lastly, take a look at how your profile looks on different devices. Make sure that your profile looks clean on mobile as well. Some things you want to make sure you're not doing: you don't want to overload your profile with just unnecessary text. Keep things concise. Don't leave broken links or outdated content. It makes you look inactive. The last thing I want to mention is if you look at the top, we created an image in the center, and it's in the images directory, and it's called this. So we want to make sure that we actually have that. So before I actually do a commit, I want to make a new directory. I'm going to call it images. Coordonix header.png is the name. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab that off screen here real quick and throw that in there. Perfect. So let's go change directory images. We'll do ls, and you see that zone identifier is there. Let's just go ahead and get rid of that. So now we have our Coordonix header.png. So let's go back a directory and do gst. So now we're ready to upload our README file, the images directory with the GitHub header. If you remember, we created a gsave alias to initialize everything. So I'm going to do gsave, hit enter. So it pops up my little cheat sheet to keep the syntax of all of my commit messages the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually probably going to call this one feat for feature. We added and removed. So what I'm going to do is hit Q. We'll do feat : and what did we do? So we created a README file for the profile. and included images in their own directory. We hit enter and everything goes. So let's go ahead and clear that. We'll pull up GitHub again. So if someone clicks on our profile, so if I just go over here and click your profile, so we have our image in the center, our H2 and 3 for our about, mission, and vision, and then we have our GitHub stats. So before we move on, let me go back and pull up the README file. So for the GitHub stats, this is the widget that I was talking about. I will paste that within the link in the description, but all you need to do is go in and where it says username equals, and I'll type username in all capitals, just put your username there. So this piece of code creates GitHub stats, and it shows our most used languages. So you can see right now my profile is 81% Vim scripts, and then I have 13.4% shell scripts. If we go back and look at the featured repos, this is the other one. And then you do have to edit two things on this one. So you'll put your username and then also your repo name here. Then once you do that, you need to put the hyperlink to your actual repo. Once you have done that, you have featured repos and it pops up just like this. So the name of the repo, whatever description we used for it, and then the languages used in that repo itself. Then we move on to the shields.io stuff. So you can see we have our tech stack header, and it's like, here's a glimpse of the technologies that we use and love. Here's all of the languages that we use. So you can see all of them say languages. And then it has HTML5, CSS, Markdown, Python, and Bash. Then we have our frameworks and libraries. So we have Bootstrap, Git, and GitHub. Now, one thing here is I've got a little piece of code and I'm not entirely sure why that's there. So let me go back and see what's going on. Yeah, so it looks like I just had an arrow in there. Apparently I was commenting out something and forgot about it. So I'll just write that file. We'll update that in a moment. Then we have design tools. So Adobe Illustrator, After Effects, Photoshop, Lightroom, Adobe Premiere. The software that I use is Discord OBS. And then the OSs, I use Windows, Mac, and Linux. And then lastly, we have our Connect With Us section that has our Facebook, YouTube, and website. If you click one, it immediately opens up the profile that you link to, and it shows everything that we have out there. And that's all there is to it. Now it's time to put what you've learned into action. Set up your profile's README, add some dynamic elements to it to showcase your work or even just your GitHub statistics, and make sure to keep it fresh and updated. Drop a comment below with your GitHub username because I would love to check out your profiles. And if this video helped you, don't forget to like and share, maybe even consider subscribing so you don't miss out on the next video.